5 years ago, I sat in my parents' living room, clutching my Google offer letter while my family took turns explaining why I needed to give up my dreams. A software engineer? My father scoffed, pacing across the Persian rug he was so proud of. The family needs you at the restaurant, Madison. We've been running this business for 3 generations. I looked down at the letter again. Senior software engineer at Google, starting salary $180,000, plus stock options. The job I'd worked toward since I was 12, teaching myself to code while helping out at our family's struggling Italian restaurant chain. The restaurants are failing, Maddie, my older brother Tony added, as if I didn't already know. As if I hadn't spent the last 4 years watching our once successful family business slowly crumble under outdated management and resistance to change. That's exactly why I should take this job, I argued. With what I'll be making, I could help dash. Help? My mother interrupted, her voice sharp with disappointment. By abandoning your family? By running off to Silicon Valley while we lose everything? I tried again. I could modernize our systems, create a better ordering platform dash. We don't need fancy computers, my father cut in. We need hands in the kitchen. Bodies in the restaurants. Family pulling together, not running away to play with technology. Play with technology. That's what they'd always called it, even when my playing had gotten me a full scholarship to MIT. Even when my internships had paid more than our restaurants made in profit. The bank is threatening foreclosure, Tony pressed. We need everyone working full-time at the restaurants. No distractions. I looked around at their faces, my father's anger, my mother's manipulation, Tony's smug certainty that he could pressure me into compliance. They had no idea that I'd already seen the bank documents, that I knew exactly how bad things were. If you take this job, my father said quietly, if you abandon this family in our time of need, don't bother coming back. My mother gasped dramatically, right on cue. Tony nodded in satisfaction, probably thinking this would be the thing that broke me. I stood up slowly, smoothing my skirt designer, though they assumed it was from the mall. Okay. My mother's eyes widened. Okay, you'll stay? No, I said calmly. Okay, I won't come back. The silence that followed was deafening. You're choosing some tech company over your own family? Tony demanded. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. I'm choosing my future over your past. I'm choosing progress over stagnation. I'm choosing to build something instead of watching everything collapse. Get out, my father whispered. Get out and don't come back until you're ready to be part of this family. I walked to the door, then turned back one last time. You know what's funny? I could have saved the restaurants. My playing with technology could have modernized everything, brought us into the current century. But you couldn't see past your own pride. I left that night, driving straight to the airport with nothing but my laptop bag and the clothes I was wearing. Behind me, I left a family bound by tradition and fear. Ahead of me lay Silicon Valley and possibilities they couldn't even imagine. That was 5 years ago. Now I sat in my corner office on the 50th floor of the Nova Industries building, watching the sun rise over San Francisco Bay. The wall of screens behind my desk displayed real-time data from my company's global operations, processing power usage, server status, client analytics. Ms. Wright. My assistant Rebecca's voice came through the intercom. Your 9 o'clock interviews are here. I smiled, remembering the email that had crossed my desk last week. Restaurant chain seeking technology partnership. Desperate for modernization. Willing to offer equity for the right solution. The signatures at the bottom had been familiar. Anthony Wright. Frank Wright. Traditional Italian Restaurants Inc. Send them to the conference room, I replied. And Rebecca? Make sure they don't see any company materials with my name on them. I stood up, adjusting my Saint Laurent blazer. No more pretending to shop at the mall. Through the glass walls, I could see Rebecca leading my father and brother to the conference room. They looked older, more worn. Tony had lost his smugness, replaced by desperate determination. My father's proud stance had deteriorated into something more hunched, defeated. They had no idea that their potential salvation lay in the hands of the daughter they'd cast out. That the technology company they were begging for help was run by the girl who used to play with computers in the restaurant back office. I picked up my tablet, which contained detailed analysis of their business. 78 restaurants across 3 states, all losing money. Outdated systems, no online presence, zero automation. Exactly the kind of dinosaur that my company specialized in either saving or consuming. The traditional Italian delegation is settled, Rebecca reported, appearing at my door. They seem nervous. Of course they were nervous. Nova Industries had a reputation for either transforming struggling businesses or acquiring them, often at pennies on the dollar. We were known as the company that could either save you or destroy you depending on how willing you were to embrace change. How do they look? I asked, though I'd watched them through our security cameras. Desperate, Rebecca replied. The older one, your father, he kept talking about family legacy and tradition. The younger one seems more realistic about their situation. I nodded, picking up a folder containing their financial records they didn't know we had. Time to make them wait a little longer. Give them 15 minutes to stew, then bring them to my office. Are you sure you want to do it this way? Rebecca asked softly. We could handle this through normal channels. I looked out my window at the city where I'd built my empire, thinking of all the nights I'd stayed up late coding, all the weekends I'd worked while my former classmates partied. 5 years of non-stop building, innovating, conquering. No, I said finally. They force me to choose between family and future. They need to see exactly what that choice led to. I sat down at my desk, arranging everything perfectly. The screens behind me showed our company's success, stock prices, market share, global reach. On my desk, a single framed article from Forbes. Madison Wright, the woman revolutionizing business technology. 15 minutes, I reminded Rebecca. Let them sweat. She nodded and left while I pulled up more data about their business. They thought they were here to beg for help from a faceless corporation. Instead, they were about to discover that their salvation or destruction lay in the hands of the daughter they dismissed. I opened their proposal email again, reading Tony's desperate words. Our family business is at stake. We're willing to do whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. I smiled, thinking of all the times they'd refused to listen to my ideas, dismissed my suggestions, treated my skills like a hobby. Now they were about to learn exactly what those skills had built. And this time I wouldn't be the one begging for a chance. Exactly 15 minutes later, Rebecca's voice came through the intercom. They're ready, Ms. Wright. Should I bring them to your office? I turned my chair to face the window, keeping my back to the door. Send them in. I heard them enter, their footsteps hesitant on the polished floor. Through the window's reflection, I could see their expressions as they took in my office. The sophisticated technology, the wall of screens displaying global operations, the subtle but obvious signs of power and success. Please sit down, I said without turning around. They settled into the chairs facing my desk. I could hear my father shifting uncomfortably, probably unused to being on this side of a power dynamic. Thank you for meeting with us, Tony began, his voice carrying that fake confidence he'd always used when trying to close a deal. We understand Nova Industries is very selective about its partnerships. We are, I agreed, still facing the window. Which makes me curious why you think your restaurant chain would be of interest to us. Traditional Italian restaurants has been a family business for 3 generations. My father jumped in. We have a legacy of quality a legacy of failure. I cut him off, finally spinning my chair around to face them. 78 restaurants losing money, outdated systems, no digital presence, and a management style stuck in the last century. The color drained from their faces as they recognized me. Tony's mouth opened and closed without sound. My father gripped the arms of his chair so hard his knuckles went white. Madison, he finally managed. Hello, Dad, I said calmly. Tony. Welcome to my company. Your company? Tony stammered. But Nova Industries is worth billions. 4.6 billion at last valuation, I confirmed. Though our stock is up 12% this month, so probably closer to 5 billion now. My father stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. This is impossible. You're just a what, Dad? I raised an eyebrow. Just a girl who plays with computers. Just the daughter you threw out for choosing technology over tradition. He sank back into his chair, looking suddenly old and small. I pressed a button on my desk and the screens behind me filled with detailed analytics of their business. Your restaurants lost $30 million last year. Your customer base has dropped 60% in 5 years. Your equipment is obsolete, your processes are inefficient, And your resistance to modernization has left you completely unable to compete in today's market. We know, Tony said quietly. That's why we're here. We need help. Help? I laughed. Like I needed help 5 years ago? When I offered to modernize everything and you told me to stick to waiting tables. We were wrong, my father whispered. Yes, I agreed. You were. And now you're here begging for salvation from the very thing you rejected: technology, innovation, progress. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city where I'd built my empire. Do you know what I did after you threw me out? I went to Google like I planned. Worked there for 2 years learning everything I could. Then I started Nova Industries with my Google stock options and a vision of transforming outdated businesses for the digital age. I turned back to face them. We've saved dozens of companies like yours. Modernized their operations, updated their systems, brought them into the current century. We've also acquired and dismantled dozens more who were too stubborn to change. Which are you going to do to us? Tony asked, his voice small. I picked up their proposal from my desk. That depends on you. Are you finally ready to admit that your way isn't working? That tradition without innovation is just slow death. Yes, my father said, and for the first time in my life, I heard real humility in his voice. I sat back down at my desk and pulled up another document on my tablet. Then let's discuss terms. Nova Industries will modernize your entire operation. Digital ordering systems, automated inventory management, AI-driven customer analytics. Everything I tried to tell you about 5 years ago. Their eyes lit up with hope, but I wasn't finished. In exchange, we take 60% ownership. All management decisions will go through our board. And you'll both step down from operational control. Step down. My father's pride flared briefly. But it's our family business. No, Dad, I said firmly. After this deal, it'll be my business. Just like everything else in this building. Tony leaned forward. And if we refuse? I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Then I'll buy your debt from the bank, which, by the way, I already have an agreement to do. Foreclose on everything and sell the assets to one of your competitors. Business isn't about family loyalty anymore. It's about adaptation and survival. The silence that followed was heavy with the weight of their realization. Everything they'd built, everything they'd prioritized over me was now in my hands. You planned this, Tony said slowly. You knew we'd eventually end up here. I knew you'd fail, I corrected him. Just like I knew 5 years ago when I offered to help. The only difference is now you'll have to pay for what you could have had for free. My father stood up again, but this time there was no anger in his posture. Only defeat. We don't have a choice, do we? You always have a choice, Dad. Just like I did when you forced me to choose between family and future. I pushed a contract across the desk. Sign and Nova Industries will save your restaurants. Refuse and I'll dismantle everything you built piece by piece. Tony picked up the contract, scanning the terms. This is comprehensive. I learned from the best, I said. Remember how you used to say business is business, family is family? Well, this is business. They signed. Of course they signed. They had no other option. Welcome to Nova Industries, I said, taking the signed contracts. Rebecca will show you out. Our transformation team will contact you tomorrow to begin the modernization process. As they stood to leave, my father turned back. Madison, I'm sorry. We should have listened. Yes, I agreed. You should have. But you didn't, and that decision made me build something far bigger than a family restaurant chain. After they left, I walked to my private bathroom and splashed cold water on my face. Through the walls, I could hear the normal sounds of my company operating, phones ringing, keyboards clicking, the hum of servers processing millions of transactions. My phone buzzed, a message from my mother. Just heard from your father. Please, can we talk? I typed back. All communication should go through Nova Industries corporate office. This is business, not family. Another message from Tony. I understand now why you left. Why you had to build your own path. I didn't respond. Instead, I called Rebecca into my office. Have the transformation team start immediately on the restaurants, I instructed. Full modernization, complete digital integration. Show them exactly what they missed out on 5 years ago. And your family? She asked carefully. I looked at the signed contracts on my desk, papers that gave me control over everything they'd valued more than me. They're not family anymore. They're just another acquisition. The next morning, I watched from my office as Nova's transformation team descended on the first restaurant. New systems being installed, staff being trained, decades of outdated traditions being swept away by the very technology my family had rejected. My father and Tony stood in the corner, watching their empire transform under their daughter's control. They'd wanted me to stay in the family business? Well, now I owned it. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying what others build. It's building something so much bigger that they end up working for you. I picked up my phone and sent one final message to our family group chat. Welcome to the digital age. Try to keep up. Then I turned back to my screens, watching as my company continued to grow, innovate, and conquer. They'd forced me to choose between family and future. They just never imagined that choice would make me their boss. 5 years ago, they told me not to come back until I was ready to be part of the family business. Well, I was back. And now the family business was just a small part of my empire. Sometimes being forced to give up a dream job leads to building something better. Something bigger. Something that turns the tables so completely that those who once dismissed you end up begging for your help. And sometimes that's the sweetest victory of all.